Hello, everybody. Welcome to the InduSoft webinar covering HMI SCADA system scalability. My name is Scott Courtier. I'm the technical evangelist for InduSoft. And today we're going to cover just how the feature set within InduSoft Web Studio makes it a very scalable product, and covering and talking about some of those features with our guest speaker today, Mr. John Hawkins from Mother Parker Tea and Coffee. And as we get started here, just a quick agenda and some quick logistics. For those of you who have not been on one of our webinar series before, we cannot hear you. So if you have any questions or comments or would like to pose any feedback, please add those into the chat window or the Q&A panel within the WebEx at the top of your screen. We'll try to get to those questions during the webinar, but we'll certainly try to answer all of those by the end of the webinar as well. Either questions for John or questions about InduSoft to myself. Let's see. We're going to cover today, again, my name is Scott Courtier, and we're going to cover how InduSoft is scalable and what different feature sets and stuff like, as you can see here in the first bullet, the operating system scalability. Talk a bit about screen resolution, auto-scaling, and actually converting the resolution within your project. We'll talk about how tag counts and the number of screens can be scalable and what you need to do there. Local logging or logging to a full SQL database, and a little bit in that section about just your overall system architecture and how that can grow and expand to meet your needs. And we'll talk a bit about some of the other feature sets and maybe things that you didn't realize within the product that can be used to facilitate a scalability or a portable application. Then I'll hand over the presentation to Mr. Hawkins, and he'll cover a bit about the Mother Parker application and how they were able to expand from just local HMIs all the way up to their MES system, some of the communications paths and technologies that they've used to do that, and some of the benefits that that's provided to their organization. Again, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to put those into the chat window and Q&A. And at the end of this webinar, shortly after, we'll be posting the slides online as well as making video available. And we'll also send you a survey that once you complete the survey and tell us a little bit about maybe your address and your shirt size, we'll not only send you a shirt, but this one has a special treat. We're actually going to send along some Mother Parker coffee, I believe, along with that. So again, welcome and thank you for joining. Let's get started here. So InduSoft was constructed or architected to really facilitate a lot of different operating systems within the Windows platform. Going back to Windows CE, in the early days of InduSoft, we really thought about the architecture and how we could keep a common platform across all the different operating systems that Windows was providing back in the mid to late 90s. And we've kept that philosophy today. So as most of you might be familiar with an HMI that might be running on an industrial PC that's maybe currently Windows XP or even Windows 7, we can take and scale that application down to a Windows CE or Windows Mobile platform and really change very little, if anything, within the project to have it run on that type of mobile device. Now, a lot of hardware manufacturers have taken and adopted Windows CE on an industrial computer type platform and made that an HMI, so we can run on those as well. And then running on any current operating system by Microsoft, which could be Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8 for desktop environments. You might find Windows Embedded, Embedded XP, or even Embedded Standard of some of the current versions, all the way up through the server editions, whether it be Server 2003, Server 2008 R2, or even coming out will be Windows Server 2012 as well. So on all those platforms, it's a consistent feature set across the board, except where maybe the operating system itself doesn't support a particular feature. But those are few and far between. For example, on maybe a mobile environment or a Windows CE environment, It might not support a polygon, a closed polygon with a gradient fill. You might have to use just a solid fill within the CE platform. So things like that, as long as you can make do with a filled polygon that's a solid color, then those types of ideas are supported across all the different operating systems. And it also lends itself to being independent from a particular hardware manufacturer. So as things progress, as operating system changes, you might find that one supplier doesn't support something that you may need. You may need to change suppliers, so InduSoft can accommodate that as well. I want to talk a bit about screen resolution and the fact that we've got a couple of different ways to handle different screen resolutions. So let's talk a bit about how this might affect you or influence you and scalability. What you might find is that maybe you or your customer builds a standard machine that's maybe a one resolution or one screen size. Let's say maybe it's a 10 or 12-inch display. And maybe that's 800 by 600 or 1024 by 768 resolution. Well, without really doing any changes at all, just checking a checkbox, and I'll show you that in a minute, InduSoft Web Studio can automatically scale the resolution if you decide to deploy this on a larger or a smaller resolution computer. And how does that benefit you? Well, you don't have to do any extra work to make those changes. And maybe you sell a standard level product and then a larger or higher end or a lower end. You have the ability to scale that project up or down, virtually making no changes at all, just a single checkbox. And I'll show you that in a moment. Alternatively, you can convert the resolution to a specific resolution that will actually alter the project. It will alter all of the screens within the project to new screen sizes. And I'll show you how to do that and what some of the ramifications there are of that. I want to switch back here into PowerPoint's design mode for just a moment to show you, because I'm going to move some things around here on the screen. Let's say that you've developed in this green area, this is a screen size that's maybe 800 by 600. Let me frame this up a little bit different, because an 800 by 600 or 1024 by 768 is going to use an aspect ratio that's roughly 4 by 3. And where you might be developing on a wide screen computer, you need to know the difference between these different aspect ratios. When we do an auto scale, and let me bring in InduSoft Web Studio here and show you, what we do within InduSoft Web Studio, and hopefully everybody can see this. I'm looking to Austin from somebody that can confirm we can see InduSoft Web Studio here. If not, I'm going to continue on. Well, within InduSoft Web Studio, that's all you need to do here is go under Project, Viewer, and then check this checkbox for auto screen scaling. Thanks, I got confirmation from Austin. The reason I did this is I don't have a little tag up at the top that tells me it's being shared. Thank you, Austin. Okay, so this checkbox, auto screen scaling, is all that you need to do. So let me go ahead and move this off screen here. And with that, what it essentially does is if this blue area is the resolution of the computer that you're going to run on, and this green area represents the screen resolution that you developed your screen in within InduSoft Web Studio, essentially when it does that auto screen scaling, it's going to increase or decrease this screen until it bumps into either the bottom or the right-hand edge. It's going to grab that and essentially grab that corner and increase it, keeping the same aspect ratio until it bumps into the bottom or the right-hand side. Well, in doing it this way, you're going to see that you're going to get left with some space on the edge of the screen. That's an expected result, and the reason that is because you want to keep the same aspect ratio so that your circles stay circles and they don't turn into rugby balls or American footballs, so that squares stay squares and not turn into rectangles. So that's expected. Now, the other way that this might happen is, let's say you've developed your screens in a wide aspect ratio, and maybe the computer that you're running on is a 4 by 3. In a similar fashion, it's going to increase that until it ends up running into the right-hand side, and you'll end up with a gray bar down at the bottom of the screen. Again, that's expected. If that's not something that you want to do, maybe you can use the convert resolution and convert that, and then manually go back and convert the objects. Let me show you a little bit about how these work. So if I start a new application here in InduSoft Web Studio, and let me go ahead and do that. We'll create a new project, and here you can see this is something I talked or will talk a little bit about in the tail end of this presentation about the different scalable runtimes that we have for the different tags, the different licenses that we have for the different tag counts. We can filter this list and have it show us just the Windows desktop and server platforms that are available, and also go to the embedded. Now we support on our embedded operating systems, we support CE via a license that we call CE View, or we also on embedded Windows such as Embedded XP or Embedded Standard, we support a license called Embedded View. And here is the list that is supported on Embedded View or CE View, and you have a choice when running on an embedded operating system. Do you want to install the full version of InduSoft Web Studio or Embedded View, which is essentially the same features that you have in Windows CE on the embedded platform? So you have a choice as to which license to run on an embedded XP or embedded standard type operating system. For this application, what I'm going to do is choose Windows platform. I'm going to choose my local interface, which is 1500 tags, and click on OK. And this is just telling me that I already have a project with that name, and do I mind if I overwrite? I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now we're presented with this display resolution choice, and this is going to be the default resolution that it creates all new screens in. And it defaulted here to the resolution of my laptop that I'm presenting on. But for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to change this to 800 by 600, which might be a 10 or 12-inch display, maybe even an 8-inch display that you might have on an industrial computer. And when I click on OK, it's going to create my new project for me. And then when I create a screen by right-clicking here and clicking Insert, you can see that it's defaulted by creating a screen that's 800 by 600. Now, if you haven't watched our training videos, feel free to do so, but in the training videos we show you not only being able to display screens full height and width, but we show you how to build a header screen and a navigation screen that allows you to be much more efficient in how you develop screens, and that you don't have to recreate the navigation over and over and over. So feel free to take a look at that. But for the sake of this application, we're creating an 800 by 600 screen, and I'm just going to click on OK here, and you can see that that's made this screen in an aspect ratio that's 4 by 3. Now I'm going to just put some objects on here to give you an idea. Now what I'm going to do is show you a feature here that in the Format tab, I can make the height and width of this rectangle be equal just by clicking on this, and it'll make a perfect square out of that. You can see down here in the status bar that it's made it 151 pixels by 151 pixels, so it's made a square out of it. In a similar fashion, I can do that with an ellipse. I can take that and turn that directly into a circle just by clicking on that in the Format tab there. And I'm going to add just a couple more quick objects here. I'm going to do a closed polygon. I'm going to make a nice little triangle, and we'll fill that in. And we'll add some text on here as well, just to give us an idea of how this gets converted. Okay, I'm going to save this as a screen. We'll call it main. And now that we have that, we can assign this as our startup screen by going over here into this menu or this tree view and right-clicking and setting as startup. Once we've done that, I don't need this screen open anymore. I can go ahead and click on Run, and you can see our screen here, as I mentioned in the PowerPoint, is I have got some leftover space on the right edge of the screen and below my screen. Now this laptop that I'm working on is a widescreen resolution, and you can see that's almost a square here. It's a 4 by 3 aspect ratio of this 800 by 600, and that's all I have to do is scale this up. I'm going to exit out of this and stop my runtime. I'm going to go into the project here under Viewer, and I'm going to click on Auto Screen Scaling. And that's all I need to do. Next time I run this project, what it's done is it's grabbed that corner and moved it all the way down to the bottom of my screen, and that's as large as it can be and still keep the same aspect ratio. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Unfortunately, I have this extra little bar over here, and that's because I'm not running on the same resolution aspect ratio display as I developed my screens for. We've got a nice article on our blog about what's the optimum resolution that you should choose and why it makes sense for you. Let me go back and also show you that I can uncheck that checkbox, and it'll go back to where it was. It did not permanently make that change. So now when I run it, it goes back to the 800 by 600 that it was. Let's say that you've developed this and now you want to scale this up to maybe a larger computer that's got a larger screen or a higher resolution. So instead of doing the auto screen scaling, what we would do is come here to convert resolution. And it defaults to the resolution that the project was developed in, and then defaults to the resolution of the development computer, in this case my laptop, which has 1366 by 768. What I'm going to do is, to keep that same aspect ratio, I'm going to pick another resolution that's the same aspect ratio, which would be 1024 by 768. And if I convert that screen, what it's going to do is go through and open those screens, convert them, and now what you'll see when we open up this screen, if I right-click and go to my screen attributes, that it has converted the size, the height, and the width to be 1024 by 768. Now when we run this, you can see that without auto scaling turned on, it's automatically scaled to as large as it can be, or not to as large as it can be. It's scaled to that 1024 by 768. We're still left with this bar on the screen because it's a wide aspect ratio screen. Let's say that we wanted to take this back. Again, it's not only an upward conversion, but it can go smaller as well. So let's go ahead and run this conversion tool here again and convert the resolution. Oh, warns me that I have to close my screen. Let's convert the resolution from 1024 by 768 all the way back down to 800 by 600. We'll go ahead and convert that, and when we run again, you should be able to see, yep, it's back, and it keeps everything all nice in the same aspect ratio. But let's say that we wanted to convert that to a widescreen aspect ratio. Well, I might want to convert this to 1366 by 768, which would be my full screen resolution here. If I convert that, when I go in, now you'll see that it's a little bit stretched, and that the square is no longer square, and everything has gone a little bit stretched. So if you don't mind that, you can just go ahead and run that, and you can see now that it goes edge to edge full screen. You might have to make some adjustments on some of the objects, but you can either keep the aspect ratio the same or just desire to stretch that all the way out to full screen. So that's some of the ways that we can support the different either auto scaling or converting the resolution. And I would like to also point out that here under the Viewer tab, this auto screen scaling checkbox that I've been using is for the runtime, the local runtime server only. We have a similar choice under our web thin client, where you can auto screen scale web thin clients that are running under or viewed under Internet Explorer. So that if you resize the Internet Explorer window, it resizes auto scale within inside of that as well. So those are two independent checkboxes. They are not the same. One is for the web thin clients only, and one is for the local runtime server only. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation here. Tag counts and tag numbers. Let's talk a bit about what we have in a product licensing offering. The starting level development system is a 1500 tag with 3 drivers, and we go up from there all the way up to 10 million tags. And you can also get runtimes that are available at the 300 tag count and the 150 tag count. And then these are the simultaneous drivers that we support. So as an example, at this 1500 tag count, or what we call the local interface, you get 3 drivers with that. Now that's not PLCs, that's the number of of driver networks, so to speak, that you have. So maybe you have an Allen Bradley PLC network, an Omron network, and a Beckhoff network. Well, you can have each one of those maybe with 16 or 20 or 64 different PLCs on it, and have many PLCs. It's not this. What I wanted to point out is that this is not the number of PLCs. This is the number of drivers associated with that. Something else related to scalability. Let's say that you're using tags within InduSoft Web Studio, and you decide that, oops, I've gone over the number of tags that I thought I originally needed, and maybe now instead of 1,500 tags, you need 2,000 or 3,000 tags. Well, what we do is we don't give you a penalty for deciding on the wrong tag count. We basically charge you just the difference between the two to upgrade. So if you need to go up to another level, let us know. Send in your site code, and we can upgrade you, and just basically the difference between the two of those. So that's a very convenient field upgradable way to do that, either soft key or hard key, or even via our new server licensing mechanism as well. Let me go back a slide here. So that's talking about field upgrades to tag numbers. Another thing that you can do is using and expanding arrays within your system. Let's say that you have created some tanks or have many pumps within your system, and maybe you want to add here in the tags, maybe you have a pump start, and by itself, that is only a tag that has one element, if you will. It's not an array set up in any way. But let's say that you maybe have now expanded and you now have 5 pumps. What I would do would be to make this an array, and notice the little icon here, this little stair step, which means it's an integer. If I click on or hit enter now, what it's going to do is put brackets around that, and that tells me that it's an array. And what I have now is I essentially have 5 pumps here, numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It starts at 0, and we have 5 pumps. And how we reference this, I can put this down here in the in Database Spy, pump start, and then in square brackets, I can reference either the number of the pump, or I can put a tag in place of the number in there, and I can adjust that as necessary. And then later on, maybe you've expanded. Instead of 5 pumps, now you add an additional 2 or 3. We can just come back in here and change this number from 4 to 6, and now I have a total of 7 pumps. And it's just that easy, and I don't have to change my conventions, my naming, and spares. I'm watching out for that as well. So that's a way that you can expand the system by using arrays. And in addition to that, I can use these classes, and classes are structures. So for example, if I have a tank, within that tank I can have something called members, which might be the tank temperature, the tank pressure, the level inside the tank, and I can create arrays of those classes as well, and that allows me to expand the system nicely as well. Adding screens as needed. We don't limit you to the number of screens. The limit is basically the amount of memory that you have, or hard drive space within the computer. And as you add screens, we don't care how many screens you add. Space within your hard drive might be an issue if you're running on a solid-state device, but certainly several hundred or several thousand screens is not out of the question. Back to this, just wanted to point out the InduSoft Web Studio has all these different names, and this is going to be able to run on your Windows desktop or server type operating systems, and then we also have CE View for Windows CE and mobile, or embedded view licensing for the Windows embedded type products. And note here the different coloring schemes that we don't support development environments in either one of these embedded operating systems. The development environment is always in a desktop or a server type PC. Moving along. Architecture progression. So a lot of people will start with just a basic HMI, and I think this is what John did with their application. They started with a simple HMI, maybe do some local logging, and then they eventually moved to a SQL database or some other type of database, and continued to grow this, and maybe eventually added redundancy and or remote type products. I wanted to point out that some of our customers I see quite often are using Microsoft Access as a database. Well, Access is not meant to be a large relational type database where you're logging thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of records over time. I wanted to point out that if you didn't know this, Microsoft SQL Server Express, whether it be the 2008 version or 2012 version, can allow you to log up to 10 gig of data. It's free. So it's even more cost effective than Microsoft Access, because I think the last time I checked, Microsoft Access is outside of a Office bundle. It's about $100. So SQL Server Express is free, and it's something that we can talk to and communicate with very easily. Again, take a look at the training videos if you need more help on that. So let me kind of put this in a picture format and talk about how you might grow this architecture. You might start with an industrial PC on your machine or your process, and then decide, oh, we want to do some alarming or trending and start logging to a local database. InduSoft Web Studio has a proprietary format that it can log alarms and events and trends to the local hard drive in a format that you can get out as a text file if you need to, or a CSV file, and bring that into Excel, let's say, and do whatever you want to with it. But as your system grows, maybe you'll find that you need to log to a remote database, and maybe that becomes SQL, whether that be Microsoft SQL or MySQL, Fox Pro, Sybase, Oracle. We can do that. And then maybe your system grows again and you realize that data, I need that data and it's critical to my system. So maybe you add a redundant server in here so I can log to redundant servers. InduSoft Web Studio has built in the functionality to be able to log to redundant servers. And it's very easy. You just choose it from the menu and set up where that other database is. Now moving along, in addition to not only logging the information here, you could set up these servers as being redundant runtime. So you could run InduSoft Web Studio down here on the local HMI, or choose to move it up to server-based architecture, where then you would have thin clients. And our thin client architecture is supported in many different ways. What this would then do would allow you to have lower cost, lower horsepower PCs here that would act as your thin clients that would really be getting most, if not all of their information from the servers. And by doing it this way, you can have either local runtime or the runtime being in the servers here. And one of the things that this allows you to do is, if you have the need for these many thin clients, and we can go up to 128 of these thin clients, one of them is included within your runtime with every runtime, but again, we can go up to 128 thin clients of the different flavors that we have. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is that a thin client type architecture, the way that we do this with our software is the communications is optimized between the server and the thin client. And some of our competitors allow you to do this with a remote desktop into, like a terminal services, into the servers. Well, that typically would take higher horsepower and more communications overhead than what our thin clients would take. So that's just something to point out. So we have a very efficient communications mechanism there. And then as your system grows, you might add in remote connectivity, whether it be iPads or Android tablets or even desktop browsers such as Chrome or Internet Explorer 10, for example. Now, I progressed this through some different stages, and you don't have to do this in this order. For example, this industrial PC could serve up web pages that would be viewed on an iPad, and you wouldn't even need the rest of this architecture over here. So there's a lot of different flexibilities in the way that InduSoft Web Studio can scale across a growing application. Some things that I wanted to point out that might help scale or migrate your applications forward. There's a built-in function called getAppPath, and what I'm going to do is put this down in my database spy window down here. And it's a function that you can use within any place where you can use the scripting language within InduSoft Web Studio. So it could be in a text box, it can be in maybe where you'd go back here to the screen, maybe using the linked picture, and the linked picture would allow me to bring in a bitmap or a JPEG or other file. Well, if you move this installation, let's say that you've gone from the architecture where you were running locally, and now you want to move your architecture up here, but your IT department wouldn't let InduSoft be installed in its default directory, and you had to put it somewhere else based on an IT requirement. Well, by using this getAppPath, it knows where the application lives, where the project lives, and let me just type it in here. And now by using this, it reports back where my project is, and we can go ahead and append on maybe the bitmap file name or the JPEG file name when we're using the linked picture, and it doesn't matter where the application is running, it will go ahead and find it and know where it is. And there's a similar one that's getProductPath, which is where InduSoft is installed. So all these will help you migrate and scale your application. Moving ahead is another idea is to use a connection string for database connections. And if I go into InduSoft Web Studio, and I'm going to have to close these screens and make sure that I'm not running here, and if I was to set up my default database connection, and normally what I would do would be to come in here and connect up to my database, and what I'm going to do is use this to build my connection to my SQL database, and come in here and tell it that it's on my local computer, and the name of the server, in this case SQL Server Express, is SQL Express. And I'm going to use Windows built-in security, and I'm going to test that connection. Once I've tested that connection, I know that connection will work, and here's the connection string that it uses to connect to that database. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and actually I'm going to cut this, and what I'm going to then put in here is connection string inside of curly brackets. And when I do that, it's going to use a string tag, and it's going to prompt me to create that. I'm going to make sure that this is a string, because what I'm going to be putting in there is all that connection string. String, okay. And now what I'm going to be doing is using this dynamically, and I can point to different databases. If my database ever moves, that's all I have to do is change the connection string within InduSoft Web Studio. I'll show you where you might do that. Here in a startup script, I might put something like this, connection string, and you can see here that the IntelliSense is giving me the type ahead. I don't even have to type that out, and I would put in here with quotes, paste that connection string in there. And now if that database ever changed, or programmatically I could change it dynamically on the fly and change what database I'm pointing to, and point to a completely different database if I needed to. So that gives you the flexibility and the scalability to help you out there. Another concept is to use tags in the min and max fields. So for example, if I go back to a screen here, and in maybe a data entry or a text data link, I might have a set point value. Put space in here. And maybe this allows me to have some values between 0 and 1,000. And if I add the text data link animation to this, what you'll see is now I could put in set point as a tag, and maybe that's an integer value. Once I check on input enabled here, then it allows me to put in a minimum and maximum value. I could, for example, hard code in here a minimum and a maximum value of 0 to 1,000, but instead what I might want to do is create tags that will support this. And by doing this, what I can then do is maybe have a configuration screen that only the maintenance person or an engineering environment could support, that would allow you to change these min and maxes on the fly during the runtime. Now, what does this do for you? Or here's an example. A long time ago, about 15 years ago, I developed an application using InduSoft Web Studio. A little bit about my background. I was a customer before I was an employee of InduSoft. And back in the day, I helped one of our customers develop an application that was about 300 screens and used all the different features within InduSoft Web Studio that were available at the time. And we did this concept where we put tag names in the minimum and maximum values, and we could choose these tags to be entered on a configuration screen, or in their case, they actually chose the values came from the PLC. So the PLC program dictated the minimum and maximum. And by doing so, what we did is we took essentially what was 50 different applications that were developed in a competitive product, and we were able to consolidate that down into one project that was easier to maintain, quicker to maintain, and easier to develop. So we consolidated 50 different applications into one just by doing this. So that's a great way to make your application scalable. And one of the things that I wanted to point out, not a lot of people know about this, but the Smart Message has an interesting feature built into it. If you were to build, here using the Smart Message object, some status displays where you would open this object up, and here under Messages, maybe for maybe the machine status, machine started, machine stopped, and if there was an undefined message, it would default and roll back to this error code. And maybe this text was red, let's say. This allows you to support 500 messages, 0 through 499, plus the error code. And if that's not enough, what you can do is you can highlight the fields that you've got configured, copy those, go ahead and paste those into Excel, let's say, and you can actually use this to help develop your project as well. But if I paste these in here, now you can see the format that this is used for the different color codes and the different columns, and I can go ahead and add those and then copy those and paste those back in. But in addition to that, there's another feature here, which is data source. The data source, which is static, means that I'm filling out these messages within the object. And if I change this to text file, I can then point to a text file that would be out on my hard drive somewhere. And once again, I could use that get app path to then help me find where that file lives. If it's just within my project folder, then I don't have to keep going to find it every single time. I can just use this with the name of the file, and it will find it for me. So that's a great way to expand on your messages and help that expand in your system as well. But I wanted to point out that even though we're just kind of scratching the surface here, everything that you need is included with InduSoft Web Studio, and you can implement what you need now and add the functionality. Maybe do this as a phased approach, where you start small and understand what can be added, and think down the road what can make your process or your machine more efficient, and run better with less material waste. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand presentation status over to John. John Hawkins from Mother Parker Tea and Coffee.
Hi, thanks, Scott. Hi, everybody. My name is John Hawkins. I work with Mother Parker's Tea and Coffee. And as an introduction, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our company, Mother Parker's Tea and Coffee. We're a 100-year-old branded and private label tea and coffee company. We produce about between 1,000 and 1,100 different items across 4 plants. We have 3 plants in Canada and 1 plant in the U.S. Our plant in the U.S. is in Fort Worth, and that's the plant that I'm working at. I've been employed with Mother Parkers for about 13 years. I've worked in various different roles. My current role is a manufacturing systems manager. And over the 13 years, we started off with 7 packaging lines at our Fort Worth plant, and now we've grown that to about 17 packaging lines, and across those 17 packaging lines, we produce about 450 SKUs. So when we first started off, we had a can line, and we wanted to have more integrated controls on that can line, and so that's when we first introduced InduSoft to our plant. And since then, we've taken it from one packaging line, scaled it to all 17 at our plant, and we actually use it across all of our company at all of our 4 plants. Some of the ways in which we're using InduSoft is we interface for MES to our coding and labeling software. So it's our manufacturing execution system. What we do is as an operator is using the industrial PC, they start a shop order. When that shop order is started, it will download the appropriate case labels and all the proper code dates and whatnot to all the different coding and labeling devices. We'll flow data from our ERP to our PLC. This helps to set target weights and upper and lower control limits inside of our packaging line so the operators don't have to worry about trying to do that themselves. And then also use it as a human-machine interface, the HMI, actually on the packaging lines themselves. The different operating systems that we're currently using InduSoft on are we use it on Windows CE, that's for the HMI. We use it on a Server 2008, which is our for case labeling and coding software, and we use it on the industrial PCs on our packaging line. The functionality that we use OPC. We're using VBScript in a variety of different ways, and we use the ODBC worksheets because we do a lot of database communications. And we also use Remote Agent for support with 4 different plants across North America. It's nice to be able to log into an application and be able to track down any kind of errors or something like that might be happening. One thing that we're challenged with over here at our plant in Fort Worth is we had many different types of machinery from many different vendors. So we had essentially the machines that put the coffee in the bags, and there were machines that we purchased when we started the plant, some machines that we inherited as we purchased another business, and also as we purchased new machines. So one thing we're challenged with is each of these machines had different operator interfaces, and that was causing an issue with training and longer changeover times and whatnot, and longer times to train employees when they first got hired on. And so our challenge was, we had these different generations of makes of packaging equipment, and then we had to come up with a way to kind of standardize that. So in conjunction with a system integrator, we developed a common interface used on all of our packaging lines. And this interface has led to shorter time to train operators. One operator can run many different packaging lines, and since all of the packaging lines have the same look and feel in the application, it's a smoother and less time for changeovers. And here's a look at some of the screens from our applications. And like I said, this screen gets carried forward through all of our packaging lines in our company that have integrated controls. And this right here is the front screen to our manufacturing execution system. So for instance, the operators would click this, it's pretty simple looking. They click the Start Shop Order button. It launches a special screen from our MES system. They key in some information. It actually starts the production order. If they need to queue up case labels, they click this case label button. It sends instructions over to the server, and that will download the appropriate case label to the printers. And also, this is where they launch all of their downtime screens and whatnot. Here's a look at a screen for capturing weight data. So in the coffee business, our product is the most expensive part of the manufacturing process, and we want to keep track of that as best we can. So we have integrated controls. Operator essentially gets a bag of coffee, puts it on a scale. The InduSoft program reads it in. We write the data from the InduSoft program to the PLC. The PLC makes an adjustment to the filler. We read back from the filler what the previous setting and new settings were, for instance, for an auger, and then we write that data to a database for analysis and trend analysis. Here's kind of a schematic of how we have our system set up. In this instance here, what we wanted to do was be able to send down to our packaging lines as much of the item-related information as we could that would help smooth the production process. Like I said before, those are going to be items such as target weights, upper and lower control limits, label weights, things of that nature. And so in this scenario here, InduSoft is communicating with the PLCs. And then on the industrial PC, we have a Microsoft SQL Server. InduSoft will write data to our SQL Server. Our MES system will read data from that SQL Server and then communicate it to the ERP system. And then likewise, our ERP system can flow data to the MES, over to the SQL Server. InduSoft reads it from the SQL Server and then pushes it to the PLC. What this has done is it's minimized or virtually eliminated the problems with packing the wrong net weights, and improved our net weight control tremendously. And it's also reduced changeover time, since now the operators no longer have to do any of those kind of settings inside the machine. They just hit start shop order, and that loads all the appropriate settings in the machine. And then there's less chance of human error. In this instance here, this is our case labeling and coding process. So the challenges we're faced with here is, occasionally with so many different items, an operator might have to scroll through many, many different types of code dates for a package. And so here what we do is on the industrial PC, the operator starts a shop order via the MES system. That information is sent to a SQL Server on our server. We use InduSoft as an OPC client. Our labeling and coding software is an OPC server. And then we send the instructions to the labeling and coding software and tell it, select this particular label format, populate it with this data, and send it to this particular labeler. This happens all in the background. The operators all they know is they click the Start Shop Order button, and all the appropriate coding is loaded to all the different devices. The benefits of this, again, were reduced changeover times and less chance of human error, and it's virtually eliminated holds for the wrong coding on the packaging.
John, thank you very much. Really appreciate you presenting there. What I wanted to do is show you just a couple other quick things. Here on our website, on the InduSoft website, here under Marketing, we have some case studies. And while we have, I say some, we have quite a few case studies. And if you go back over all different imaginable industries, whether it be packaging or water and wastewater, feeding animals, shopping malls for building automation type applications. What I'm going to do here is, now that I'm in the case studies, I'm just going to type in Mother for Mother Parkers, and we'll see that we have a case study on John's application here. And John, your application is making me thirsty. Maybe I need another cup of coffee for the day here. But you can see some of John's screens and what the background of this project was, and an objective, what they really wanted to get out of it, and then how they ended up implementing InduSoft Web Studio and how it expanded for them. And then, John, I haven't been there, but I'm assuming this is a picture of your facility there?
Yes, it is. It's our plant.
Yeah, so that's, I don't think we can see you waving, but that's where you're located. Okay, let's see. Again, I don't see any questions in here. Let's see if there's anything else that I would like to cover. I think that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to send those in to info@InduSoft, and we'd be happy to answer those. I'd like to extend a very big thank you to John for presenting today and joining us on the webinar. I'd like to thank everybody for joining the webinar that's attended. I see a lot of repeat people who have attended. I'd like to thank you for doing that. And again, if you fill out the survey that we're going to send you with your name and address and shirt size, we'll be sure to send you a t-shirt for attending, and the special gift, which a little packet of coffee, and thank you for attending. There is a question here. Hopefully we can get this one answered. Do you use backup servers running InduSoft? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by backup servers, but let me point out one of the things that we can do within InduSoft Web Studio. For example, when it comes to databases, we can point to Let me close this. Options, databases. We can point to the primary database, and very typically you're going to have your remote database be the primary, and then have a secondary that would be local. And when you configure this, the secondary, you could have the secondary be either redundant or store and forward. And redundant is set up so the primary and the secondary keep the exact copy of the same data in the database going on all times. If it's set up as store and forward, and the primary or the remote one goes offline, then the local one stores the data until the remote one comes back online, and then pushes the data back up to the primary when it's done. The data then gets redundant back up that way. So hopefully that answers your question. Another question is auto scaling available for Windows CE? Let's see, I don't remember directly, but let's take a look here, see if I can figure that out. So here under the viewer, we have this auto screen scaling, and if I change my target to an embedded platform, I'm not sure if I have, there we go, the auto screen scaling checkbox is removed, so no, it is not available under CE. Hopefully that answers your question. So there's some other things that you could do. You could do the screen conversion, but the auto screen scaling is not supported under CE. The question, clarification came back in about the backup server. The question that was posed was really, can you have system level, total system level redundancy? And we've got a couple of different ways that we can do this. We've actually got an application on our website that is, let me go ahead and open this up here. And if we go to products, sample applications, we have a project or a sample application that was created that shows you how to do system level redundancy. And the idea behind this is that there's two different computers running InduSoft Web Studio, and they communicate to each other via our TCP/IP worksheet. And what that allows you to then do is have a primary runtime and a secondary runtime, and one of those is hot or one of those is live. So maybe the primary is currently hot. If for whatever reason that one fails, then the secondary one becomes hot and takes over that application, and then is communicating to the PLCs. And this sample application shows you exactly how to set that up and how all that works. In addition to that, we've got some nice information on a blog post that we did, even a couple of years ago. And I think I can dig this out fairly quickly. The post was actually quite a few years ago, so I think it's back here under older posts. And let's see here. Licensing, connect to remote databases. Well, it's even older than that. It goes back a while. I want to point this out because this is a really nice article that we have on our blog that shows that our blog is not really just advertising. It's also some nice, clear articles that are technical and how to use this. Let me go back one more here. Of course, I'm not going to find it as quickly as I need it, but InduSoft Web Studio basically has a flexibility and the capability built in to be able to do the system level redundancy. Something else I should point out is we also have some training videos or some videos in our library that we did a webinar a while back on system level redundancy, so that should answer any of those questions as well. Question came in, let's see. John, can you answer how long did it take you to evolve your application? When did you start working on this, and how long did it take you to progress?
It took, we started working on it on a single packaging line, and I would say within 2 to 3 years, we had it rolled out to the vast majority of our packaging line.
Okay, so roughly 2 to 3 years, and how long have you been using InduSoft from the beginning? Was that the beginning of when you were using it?
That's
or
correct.
How many years ago?
About 13 years.
Oh wow! So you've been using InduSoft Web Studio for a long time. And how many plants and I think this was in your presentation, but we had the questions asked. How many plants and lines is it used on now?
It's used across 4 plants and probably, I would say, at least 40 packaging lines.
Okay, spectacular. Thank you. Let's see. I have another couple questions that came in. Somebody asked, when can we get the link for the download of the webinar? That'll happen within the next couple of days. It depends on how long it takes us to get the video ported over to a format that could be downloaded. The question is, do we have any memory write optimizations? I think this is a question maybe about flash type media. Do we have any memory optimization for if it's on a storage card that's a flash media, because there's a limited write cycle to that. That's often handled by the operating system or the interface to the flash media itself, where there's a system called wear leveling that as flash media has a limited number of writes that it can do to each individual bit. What they're doing now is they're putting additional storage into those media cards and moving the data around for you. You don't even have to. Question came in, if a project is developed on dual monitors, what's the best client access solution to use? WebThin client or secure viewer? I'm not sure I understand. Let's see. We want the clients to be able to scroll around and view all the graphics. But that's a question I don't know if I'm prepared to answer, because, okay, the question as I understand it is, if you've developed an application that uses multiple monitors, and let me go back into my PowerPoint presentation here. And if you've got an application that uses multiple monitors, then what would be the better way to go, WebThin client or secure viewer? Depends on if you're using dual monitors in an extended desktop solution. That basically means that you're using, let's say, side-by-side monitors, and then your application is one big screen that fits across, it spans across both of those. Yeah, it might be best to use a WebThin client that has auto screen scaling on. I said WebThin client. You could really use either WebThin client, which would be Internet Explorer, or Secure Viewer. WebThin client with Internet Explorer is going to take up just a little bit extra space with that border around it for the Internet Explorer, but maybe Secure Viewer might be a better option to be able to handle that. Hopefully that answers your question. That way you'll be able to view the graphics on all the different pages, or the 2 different pages side by side. So at this point I don't see any other questions in. We're right at the top of the hour. If there's any other questions, go ahead and send those in with your survey, or send them into info@indusoft.com. We'd be happy to hear your comments, your suggestions for future webinars, and thank you for joining. I'd like to thank John again for presenting with us and joining us and being a customer, a longtime customer, and thank everybody today for attending. We really appreciate it. And again, John, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, and with that, we're going to conclude the webinar, and just one quick more slide. Thank you, and if you need to get a hold of us, you can at info@indusoft.com, or at our other offices as well. You can call us directly. You can go on to our website and enter a live chat mode if you want to contact us. But other than that, we're done for today, and I'd like to thank everybody again for attending, and hope to see you in another webinar soon. Thank you, and have a great day.